Welcome, listers and friends of listers. I am Anne Choquette, CEO of The List. I am so thrilled to have this launch with The List for Denise Hamilton's book, Indivisible. Who's got a copy of the book there in front of them? Pop it up so we can all see the book. I don't have my copy here. Indivisible by Denise Hamilton. I have had the privilege of helping Denise launch this book and being in her presence the other night. And as she spoke about this division that we are all facing and this urgency for us to come together and bridge understanding, I started to get goosebumps. It was so powerful. She is such a special voice in this conversation. I am so thrilled to have her here with the unbelievable Bea Arthur, trailblazing CEO, founder of The Difference, therapist, and champion of women. I am going to be quiet and get out of the way, and feel free, Denise and Bea, at some point to take questions. I will be here in the chat to facilitate, and I will leave it to you. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you, Anne. And thank you, Denise. I don't know if the people know like what a treat they're in for because you are truly a supreme. Congratulations on the book. How do you feel?
So overwhelmed, so honored, so blessed, so deeply loved and supported. You know, when you do a project like this, it tests all of your relationships and your networks. And I have been blown away by who has shown up and shown up so powerfully, including The List and Anne and you. And I'm just been blown away.
Yes, well, we are so proud of you. That's exactly what the list is for. Shout out to Anne for always bringing these voices together. This is so encouraging because there's so many listeners and aspiring listeners who are wanting to write a book. And you're absolutely right. I'm a therapist first. And so I'm sure like seeing your words and judging your words and being audience minded while also being like honest and authentic to self, like so many things going on. How long did this take and why did you decide to write Indivisible?
Well, I have a great origin story. I was on Clubhouse and I met Adam Grant. I was
Oh my
invited to
God.
be in a room on Clubhouse and talk about his book Think Again. And I offered some thoughts about it, and he was like, "Wait a minute, who is this little girl? What's this little chick story?" And he invited me to subsequent rooms that he was hosting, and we just struck up a friendship. And he was like, "You need to write a book."
Wow.
And he walked me in to literary agents. And I was able to pick the amazing woman, Christy Fletcher. And then we pitched the book and got to deal with Norton, Countryman Press, which is an imprint of Norton, and the rest is history.
Wow.
So it really is like people ask me, like, how do you get a book deal? How does it happen? I don't know. I don't know. Literally, somebody walked me in the door. Actually, I do know. You raise your voice. You be
Mm,
yourself. You
yeah.
always contribute and you speak up and you present your particular brand of magic and you let the universe do the rest. That's the advice I have to give.
I love that. I love to hear that because I love how you're like, I can't relate to the struggle. I was just in the mall
Not
and they
that
asked me if I
particular
wanted to
struggle.
model. Yeah, like that's amazing. No, but it's true, y'all. Denise, even though her name says Meg Bird, that's her, even though this is Denise Hamilton, and she truly is a phenom. Denise and I were on a panel last year for The List,
Yeah.
about loneliness at the top. And normally I'm like the star panelist, like everybody always wants to talk to me at the end. But there was a new Supreme, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I was like, yo, who is Ann? Why would you bring me here to get embarrassed like this? But when someone's better, you just got to give it up because you are such a star. What makes you so authentic? When you say raise your voice, what is your unique, specific voice?
I think that I've had this really unique kind of journey to get to be like who I am today. I just have moved in and out of cultures, different groups, different cities, different ethnic groups, different socioeconomic classes. For almost every job I've ever had, I've been the first or the only Black person or woman.
Mm,
And so I have kind of this lifelong set of experiences that have really poured into this book. For those of you who don't know me, I work as an inclusion strategist, which means I actually help organizations operationalize their DEI goals, right? And that means like, okay, you have the cool things that you wrote in the program and you put in the annual report, but what are you actually going to do? And how is it actually going to work? And helping them kind of reconcile the changes that have to happen. And I live in Houston, Texas, and I have worked with the late adopter organizations, right? Legacy, so like oil and gas, finance, commercial real estate, places that are, not at the tip of the spear necessarily when it comes to these topics. But I got to tell you, people ask me why I wrote this book. Part of it was the encouragement I get from seeing people who we all assume are not going to be about this work that are 100% about this work. So I've seen change be possible, and I want to remind the whole world that change is possible. And so I chose to do it through this book.
We really need to hear that right now, because like there's a lot changing, not in the way that maybe we wanted to go sometimes. And I know y'all think I'm bumming, but I wore my democracy shirt specifically for this conversation because people want to feel heard. We want to feel more unified. And it is hard to look around like that and feel like the people at the top don't care. They're not listening. They don't want to change. But yeah, you and I are both from Texas, just like Beyonce. Shout out to you, girl. And like another legacy pioneer, like you really are changing hearts and minds at the top. What do you think is the easiest way to get through to someone who seems like conservative and unmoving and non-modern and all that stuff?
Well, I think the first step is you don't have to get through to them, right? They're people, we're people, we're all people, and people want good things for each other, right? I think sometimes you have to start with ascribing good intention, and really trying to have conversations that build on the things that we have in common rather than fixate on the points of disagreement. We talk a lot. There's a lot of articles and commercials and all kinds of things that talk about the division. We're so divided. We're so divided. We've never been this divided. That is not true. We literally fought a war that literally like hundreds of thousands of people died. Like it's not true. We've absolutely been far more divided than we are right now. The difference is that we have lost our fight, our courage. I think that there are more of us. And when I say us, I mean people who believe in fairness, equality, inclusion, justice. Like there are just more of us than we think, but we have been talked out of our power. And I think that's really the challenge of this particular season. It isn't that there's bad people in the world. There's always been bad people in the world, right? That's not new. There's always been greedy people in the world. That's not new. What's new is our kind of capitulation to these forces rather than standing up to fight. I was thinking about the Alabama bus boycott the other day, and thinking about like the fact that when I was in my formative years, as I've heard the story over decades, I always thought it was like a couple weeks. I didn't really like lean into it. And I started studying it and I saw like, oh my gosh, this is over a year. It was over a year. And these people weren't doing, jobs like you and I have, pushing keys on keyboards or moving paper from one side of a desk to another. These people were doing physically grueling, demanding jobs, and they walked to and from work for over a year. In Alabama, 100 degrees, 98 degrees. Like, we get tired after 2 weeks. We are worn out. We don't know how we're going to figure it out. We're just exhausted. We give into discouragement in a way that, quite frankly, is beneath us. It's beneath us. So when I say, and I position in the book and suggest that we should be indivisible, I don't mean those people over there need to change. I mean, we all need to change. We need to shift from being renters to being owners. Here's what I mean by that. When you're an owner, you move a certain way. You fix the
Mm,
crack in the foundation. You
mm,
address the
yes,
electrical issues. You fix the plumbing, all the unsexy stuff that nobody else cares about. Why?
right.
Because you care about the long-term viability of that asset, right?
Wow,
When you're a renter, what
goodness.
do? You use peel and stick tile because you're just here to get the temporary extraction of value from that asset, right?
Right.
And no shade to renters, but we need more owners. We need people that move like they own this space. Like if they don't sweep in front of the house or in front of the porch, like nobody else is coming to do it,
Right.
right? So this idea of shifting away from an extraction model, and I am not going to lie to you, we are overrun with extractors. We are
Mm,
overrun with extractors. And not only do we have too many extractors, we now have glorified people that break things. That's become the new norm. You're smart if you don't pay your taxes.
right.
Right?
Go.
You're not a schmuck if you don't,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like we've gotten to a space that not
Hmm.
only do we have people who are not committed to planting trees for the next generation, we literally have people who are plucking up the trees somebody else already planted.
For no good reason.
And we are allowing it. And we say, oh, well, what can we do? What can we do? We have to do something. We're not the first generation to have challenges. We're the first generation, I think, to be talked out of our power.
Oh my
This
God.
is the most powerful country on planet Earth.
And the
And
most
its
powerful time.
citizens work, walk around, and move around like they are hopeless and
Yeah.
helpless. It is unacceptable. We are living beneath our privilege and we can
Ooh.
do better.
Okay, I'm just gonna pause for applause because yeah, that makes me sit up straight. And that is so hopeful because you're absolutely right. I always say this with my clients in therapy. When you feel hopeless, when you feel helpless, like you are not in your power, right? Because power starts with connection and people are so disconnected and so discouraged. And I'm sure you've seen with all the news about DEI and everything that's it's basically dying. They overturned affirmative action. They're going after black funded, black owned businesses to make sure that you can't get special treatment and everything like that. But they want us to feel powerless, right? They want us to feel like there's nothing we can do. So how do we do it? Because this generation, unfortunately, has been raised on Instagram activism and looking up to disruptors and the tax cheats and the breakers and things. How do we build together in a meaningful way that keeps the fight going for a year in the Alabama heat?
Yeah, we read books instead of banning them. That's what we do. We look at our history and we see the powerful examples of how problems like this have been addressed in the past. My personal muse is Harriet Tubman. I'm low-key obsessed. Here is this petite woman enslaved in the 1800s, grew up born on a plantation, was assaulted as a child. So she had a seizure disorder. So she had a disability. She couldn't read. She couldn't write. She didn't have a horse. She didn't have a map. She didn't know anybody in the North. She had never been more than a mile from the plantation. And she ran by herself to freedom. Now we could stop the story right there and it would be phenomenal. But that's not where the story stops. She literally turns around and comes back. Who does that? This time she got 3 people. The next time she got 5 people. The next time 4 people. Then like each trip going back again and again and again to save anybody that she could save. Historical accounts are spotty, but the number that they think she saved was approximately 70 people. We need the tenacity of a Harriet Tubman.
Ooh,
We are not less capable. We are not less equipped. We don't have less resources. We don't have less education.
right.
We don't have less of anything but courage, commitment, and tenacity. That's where we are right now. So if somebody with like we talk about disparate power, people tell me all the time, Denise, the billionaires are against us. You know what? Probably felt like a billionaire to Harriet Tubman in her time, a slave catcher, a slave owner, right? That disparity is not a new gap. That
Right,
gap has
right.
been here. right? And so what we need to do is remember who we are and what we're
Wow.
capable of, and look at the examples of people who have done this work over and over and over again throughout the years. And the names are going to change, right?
Right.
There's always language is in this social media environment, the ability to name a thing or to bastardize the naming of a thing is a powerful,
Yes.
powerful skill, right? And so there are people who are deeply committed, and I would say they monetize our misunderstanding of each other, right? So
Oh,
there's a
actually
part of
counting on
us,
it.
yeah,
Mhm.
counting on it. And so there's part of us that has to focus on our digital literacy. And while we're here, I want to say something to this very, very powerful group of people on this call right now.
Ooh.
We have got to stop being a hamster in the outrage wheel,
Oh my God.
sharing every horrible thing that comes
Right.
across we literally are turbocharging hate and sharing it over and over and over again, because we're like, can you believe? I can't believe he said that. I can't believe she did that. But our outrage is literally lining the pockets
Yeah.
of people who are committed to our division, right? So I think this
Yes.
notion of our actual power, our
Agency.
ability to convene, our ability to gather is what we
Mm.
have to remind ourselves of.
Ooh, I feel so empowered. You are absolutely right, because when you give your anger away, you give your power away. And you can see it right now within literature, within media, even on Twitter, right? Before it was just people I followed and I like to learn for. Now they've reversed engineered the algorithm. So I'm only seeing things that are going to make me mad, right? I'm only seeing things that I'm going to be like, oh yeah, come be mad at this with me. But it's not useful, right? You use your best energy on being mad. And like you
And your
said,
energy is precious. I don't have to tell you as a therapist, your
that's
energy is priceless. It's precious. And
literally.
where are we spending it? Who gets it? How on earth do we let a man who has multiple discrimination lawsuits against him declare DEI must die? How did we let that happen? How have we put the foxes in charge of the hen house? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So when I say make this move from renters to owners, I believe if we moved more like owners, there's a whole set of conversations we wouldn't even have to have anymore. We wouldn't argue if we should provide lunch for school children.
Right,
That's
girl.
not a conversation we would ever have. Do rural areas need hospitals? We wouldn't have to have arguments about these things, because we understand that this is our generation's turn. We have inherited a great, big, beautiful house with
Mm,
great bones. And it's
yeah.
our generation's turn to remodel the bathroom, fix up the kitchen, paint the garage. Like, that's what we're doing now. And we have just taken our hands off the wheel.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Wow. Okay. So I have not got your book, but I want a million copies that are all signed, because I'm about to be on the street proselytizing and evangelizing for you, because you're absolutely right. You may have encouraged me. If y'all follow me on Instagram, I just got unblocked because I was cyberbullying Joe Biden. And I've been telling everybody I meet that I'm not voting for him because I think he's a weak leader. I think he's got just as much baggage as Trump at this point. But I mean, I'm wearing the democracy. I'm a first generation immigrant. I really do believe in the American dream and American story. So does your book talk about advocacy or more activism? Because you're right, we have the tools, we have the power, we just have been like disempowered. So what do you recommend for meaningful change so we don't feel so powerless?
Yeah, I think that what I focus on in my book is really what gets in the way. What
Mm,
is getting in the way? What's the problem that we kind of theoretically all have the same idea of what we want to have happen, but what is actually inhibiting us? For example, I talk about our stories,
mhm.
right? We have some stories that are broken, some
Not true
stories that are
anymore.
incomplete, and some
Mm,
stories that are outright lies.
right.
Right? And I don't think that we give the appropriate weight to the fact that our stories do not let us go easily. They don't, right? I don't know about you. I'm 53, and I
That's a
was
lie.
the truth, the truth. I was in my 40s. Anybody remember the story of Rapunzel?
Mhm.
I was in my 40s before it ever occurred to me. Rapunzel was she's a princess. She was locked in a tower, no door. She had inappropriately long hair, and she would help her mother, the witch, in and out of the tower. She would help the prince in and out of the tower. I was in my 40s before it ever occurred to me, why didn't Rapunzel use her own hair to get out of the tower? Why didn't she save herself? You know why it didn't occur to me? Because all the stories, Sleeping Beauty is laying in the woods waiting for somebody to save her.
Sitting
And
there.
all these waiting stories. Look at
Mhm.
the Little Mermaid. You can have the man of your dreams. All you have to do is give up your voice.
This is
Stories that are in our heads that tell us what we can't do, what a leader looks like. Can you be a petite CEO? Do you have to have a certain depth of voice to be the
Mhm.
leader? You know,
Mhm.
do you have to come from a certain community to be a
Right.
scientist? We have all these stories in our heads that limit us. And even as we add new stories, if you go into any bridal shop in America, those brides want to look like Cinderella,
Yeah.
right? Because our stories, they don't let us
Mm.
go. They have us by the throat. So one of the steps that you can do if you really are serious about this work is examine your stories.
Wow.
Examine what you think, examine what you believe to be true, even about yourself. You know, I see Julia Pimsler on here, and I know like the work that she does with women around mindset and shifting. Can you have a $1 million business? Can you accomplish that?
Mm.
Because if you don't think you can, then you can't. So
Right.
what stories do we have? Oh, we're so divided. We can't figure this out. The America's in decline. We've come to the end. Look at the stories we tell
Mm.
ourselves. If the most powerful people on the planet tell themselves these stories, what are they
Right.
doing? Like, what is anybody else supposed to do? So we sit with our $12 lattes. Shout out to Starbucks. My friend Dorothy is on here. She loves Starbucks. Shout out to in our Lululemon, leggings, and we tell ourselves we just can't figure it out, and it's just not true. It's not true.
Course.
We do exactly what we want to do. The problem is, what do we want to do?
Mm.
What do we want to do? What do we care about? Do we care about our fellow citizen? New rule. If you say you love America, I'm going to need you to love Americans. That's the only way that really works. You can't love dirt. You need to love the country itself. And
Oh my
so,
God.
what would it mean if we started loving each other, caring about each other, being invested in each other? I worry that the cure for cancer was already born. It was just born in the wrong neighborhood
Oh,
because we don't develop everyone. We don't
right.
cultivate everyone. We don't sow into
Yeah.
everyone. And it's at our own peril.
Of
I
course.
will never forget as long as I live. Everybody has the things that they remember about the pandemic and the lockdown. Here's the thing I can't ever forget. We couldn't make masks.
Hmm?
We could not make masks. We couldn't make the protective garments that our medical professionals needed when the supply chain was broken. We literally did not have the capability to do so many things.
Wow.
How powerful are you if you can't keep your people safe? How powerful are you if you have rampant homelessness in all of your major cities? It's unacceptable.
It's unacceptable.
And like I was sitting with my daughter. My will be 30 in a couple weeks. She hates this number, by the way. I tell her it's fabulous. But my daughter, I was sitting with a group of her friends, and they were saying, all of them, it was a bunch of them too, they don't want to have children.
Mm.
They don't think they can have children. They don't think they can afford it.
Mm.
Shame on us. Shame on us from creating a situation that young people do not feel like they can have a child, they ever have a chance of buying a house, they can
Right.
afford their education. Shame on us. And so, yes, there are forces, there are greedy people, there are bad people, there are all of the things. there's also us.
There's also
And what
us.
are we going to do? What is the plan?
Well, I know my plan. I'm gonna try and get you to run instead of Joe Biden. No, just like, but dead ass, like you are absolutely right. Like you, I mean, we do love Americans. Have you considered political office? This is not even on my questions, but have you considered getting in public service? Because I mean, yeah, this is exactly what we need: unifying and empathizing.
No, but thank you.
Never? Oh,
No, I think like I want to be free to say everything that I want to say the
right.
way I want to say
Denise
it. I love
Hamilton for
and
president.
it's so cute, Denise Hamilton for president.
Denise Hamilton, Alexander.
But you know what? You know what? It's really interesting that you say that because in a weird way, I think that we have created this space that we're looking for like supernatural leaders, right? Like we've talked ourselves out of like normal, regular people running
Right.
for office, running the company, leading a campaign that like, and even that has been a trick. I think about like the way we talk people out of their
Mm.
power is by lifting up some people and making success feel impossible. So
Mm.
wait, you're 22 and you don't have a $1 billion company yet? What are you even doing with your life?
You're
What is
already lost.
happening? You
Yeah.
slacker. Like we've talked people out of their relevance. Oh, are you over 50? The popular culture really kind of sidelines and marginalizes you as soon as you're 50. Honey, I just am getting started. I have so much to add and contribute to this world. Are you
I
kidding me?
believe
I
it.
just figured stuff
Mm.
out. Like, I'm not going to let anyone marginalize me, but we let folks tell us that it has to be extraordinary. I like it. Going back to Harriet Tubman, you know, I don't know if we would be satisfied with saving 3 people or
Mm.
saving 5 people, right?
No.
We feel like if it's not some gargantuan, Herculean, incredible thing
Right.
that's on TV and all the news outlets cover it, it doesn't matter. And that's not
No.
true.
That's a
It
really good
all
point because
matters.
that's how things get done. You don't need to save a billion people at once. You can keep saving 10 and 100 people.
Yeah.
And that's how we get hands across America.
Yeah, yeah.
Denise,
And people ask me all the time since I wrote this book. People ask me all the time, what can I do in my industry? I don't know. I don't know your industry. I don't know
right,
what happens there. I don't know what the moving parts are, but you know.
right.
You know where you recruit. You know that you only recruit from 3 colleges, 5 colleges,
Call
right?
them out.
You know that you give preference to people with sexy internships at Google and whatever. All that means is their mom had a friend at Google.
Yeah,
That's really all that means, right?
true.
So you know the places and spaces that you're calcifying difference, calcifying disadvantage, right? So you need to
Right.
seek that out. I call it in the book, I say, listen for echoes. What are the
Mm,
leftovers of the legacies that we have in this country that we need to purge? Right? Like what are the things that we're doing every day that feel like really normal and appropriate, but when you really look at them, you're like, this is kind of an echo. We need to let this go. This
mm,
doesn't matter the way we think it matters. I like I told you, I work with really conservative organizations. I have been literally I've worked, there was one company that I did an executive leadership retreat, and they had just put in a ladies' bathroom 3 years before I got there.
oh,
Right. Because they never had any women in leadership. And
how?
so like the idea that we have to keep pushing forward, we have to keep
Mm,
connected to what is possible and continually move through those challenges,
yeah,
because we have come a long way, because
it's
that's
true.
the other story. We're going backwards.
Nothing's
It's
gonna
so
change.
terrible. It's so horrible. The pendulum was always going to swing back.
Mhm,
The folks that know, the girlies that know, right? The
right.
pendulum was always going to swing back.
Yeah.
Now it's our job to make sure it swings back again, because this is societal change occurs in spurts. It goes back and forth and back and forth. Um, and I think we just need to kind of develop a little bit of heart and a little bit of
Mhm.
courage and commitment. It's going to be up, it's going to be down, there's going to be challenges,
Mhm.
and we still have to be here and we have to be true, right? So there's another kind of barrier that I think we don't talk about a lot. Um, this idea of thoughtless charity. And what I mean about this is that whatever we do is good enough. And that's not true.
Ooh.
Whatever we do, I think this is kind of an American, an oddly weird truism. Um, that whatever you give is good enough. Whatever
Yeah.
you do
Whatever's
is
in
good
your
enough.
heart.
And it's
Yeah.
not. There are standards. There are
Oh,
standards of
no.
what is good enough, right?
Well, what's the
We
least
can
we
do
can do?
more. Each
Okay.
one of us has the capacity to do more. And kind of wrapped up in that is the danger of the feel good story, right? And what I mean by that is a story that distracts you from the real problem and gives you like a shiny thing to feel
Mhm.
really good about,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. A friend sent me an article, and she was so thrilled. She was like, "Oh my gosh, isn't this beautiful? Isn't this amazing?" And I said, "Oh, let me read this story and see what she's talking about." She said the story was a little girl, elementary school age little girl, severely disabled. Her parents have terrible insurance, but they applied for a motorized wheelchair, and the insurance turned them down. So the local high school robotics team
Oh,
got wind of the story and they built her a motorized wheelchair.
and
And
everybody,
everybody sends the story
yay,
around saying,
community.
"Hey, look how
We did
sweet."
it.
That should be embarrassing.
Many failures in that.
Older children have to help our younger children
Ooh.
navigate catastrophic illness. That's not something to be proud of. That's something we should be embarrassed by. Right. So I think this idea of
Mm.
whatever you give, whatever you do, whatever is good enough. I saw it with Hurricane Harvey. With Hurricane Harvey, I live in Houston, and those of you who don't know, catastrophic storm
Terrible.
displaced thousands and thousands of people,
Uh-huh.
and people lost everything.
Mhm.
And thank I was so grateful that my house was not impacted, but that I live very close to the George R. Brown Convention Center that was the shelter
Yeah.
for the storm. And I will never forget it. I'll never forget it as long as I live. The items that people donated: swimsuits, graduation gowns,
No, really?
garbage,
Oh
bedding that was ripped or stained.
my
If you can use
goodness.
my imagination, use your
I
imagination.
gotcha. Ew.
I I couldn't believe it. They had to assign specific staff to sift through the garbage,
Wow.
to separate the garbage from the good donations, because people just went and took it as a chance to clean out their
Yeah,
closets
they can feel good.
and it make them feel good because they came down and they made a donation. No, it's possible to give in a way that
Yeah.
literally takes assets away from the people that are takes
Right.
attention and energy
Right.
away from the people that have needs, right? It's possible to give in such a way that you diminish the people that you're giving to,
Mm.
right?
Very
So
good.
even as we talk about and think about DEI, one of the big challenges that I think people should think about is like, do you see it as charity?
Mm.
Charity, are you doing a kindness? Because
Mm.
it's not a kind,
Right.
it's a
Yes.
value that we should all uphold. So there's an idea of like whatever I do is good enough. No, we need to learn. We need to read. No matter how many DEI classes are canceled, you need to find people like Christina and me and other people who are teaching and working in these spaces and learn for yourself. You need to go see a movie like Origin that is phenomenal and opens up your mind about how you think about these
Mm.
issues. and you need to grow. The status quo is just not acceptable. We need to do more. So I think that it's there's a lot of work to do, but there are many hands to do.
Yes.
There
Yes.
really are. There
Yes. I
really,
love
really
that.
are. If we can tap in to the abilities and the gifts that we have in our own way, right?
Mhm.
There are some people that are gonna march in a protest. There are some people that are gonna file lawsuits. There are some people that are gonna pick
All
one young
kinds.
person and sew into them and
Yes.
help them get into an industry that they
Yeah.
think is possible. There's so many ways to touch and develop and enhance the reality of our country. And I
Ugh.
think we should try that. Let's give that a shot.
Oh my God. Denise Hamilton, we are waiting in the streets for
Oh
you.
my
That's my
gosh.
Hamilton replies. You just can't hear it because I don't have a good melody. Okay, the comments are going crazy for you, and I want to make sure we get to them. But I have one question because you are excellent, very gifted at calling people out in a way that doesn't
In.
feel call people in. Correct, but you've given so many examples that don't make me feel because as we've seen with DEI dying, like as much as some people like want to post a square and their diversity commitment, you can't call truth to power if you're too pushy as a woman, right? As women, we know we have to do it coded. You can't talk to men any kind of way just because it's not, as effective. A lot of times men don't like to be told what to do by women. And, we're also raised, a good girl conditioning, women say this phrase, can I ask a question? Way more than men do. So there's also that fear of our own power and fear of pissing the person in power off. What do you recommend for people who want to feel stand in their verse, but have seen other people get shut down for doing the same?
Yeah, I think I start with caring about the other person. Do you care about getting to understanding with the other person, or do you want to win? And those
Mm,
are two different goals. And so I see a lot of people move into conversations with the goal of winning,
right.
and you win nothing. There's no prize here. We're not against each other. And even like the Democrat Republican framing, imagine like this, let's just stop for a minute.
It's gone too
How
far.
ridiculous is it
It's
to
not a
think
game.
you can reduce the entire
Human
multifaceted
thought.
nature of the
Yeah.
world to two different groups? So it's
Right.
just not possible,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a humility that I try to approach conversations with. I really do want to hear, why do you think this? Where is this thought process coming from? Where do we really agree? What is it that we
Right.
actually agree or disagree about? But you can't do that if you're coming in hot. You
Yeah.
you just can't. And that I want to be careful. Like, I don't think it's necessarily gendered as much as it is effective, right? I want to
Mm-hmm.
be effective.
Yes.
I want to make sure that when I enter a space, I'm communicating with people in such a way that when I leave, they understand what I actually said, not the fill in the blanks of what I said. They understand me clearly. It's why
Hmm.
I personally avoid jargon in a lot of my presentations. And I use a lot of simple, non-political examples so that people can kind of say, okay, what's the principle? So it's really important to me that people understand what I actually said. And they don't have to convert to my belief system.
That's not the goal.
You live at your house, I live in my house. You don't have to do anything differently. My job is to plant the seed. Though anybody who has a religious orientation, like hopefully will agree, will see the logic in this. I see it as my job is to plant the seed and to water. It's the God, it's the universe that makes the magic of a plant growing out the ground. I don't have anything to do with that. So I can't tell you how many times I've done a presentation somewhere and 3 months later, 6 months later, 2 years later, somebody calls me or sends me a note that says, man, you said that in that session and I didn't really understand it, but I'm watching it on television and now I see what you were saying now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we need to take our ego out of it.
Yeah, definitely.
You just share the information with the pure intent of the other person truly understanding you, and really try to listen to them, really try to understand. And that reduces everyone's barrier
Yeah.
so that you can hear each other. There's always going to be people who are committed to misunderstanding you. I
Sure.
don't go to Klan rallies to talk about
Right.
inclusion, right?
Sure.
But I think that we too often presume that the person that we're talking to is not going to listen, is not going to be receptive. I think we're too quick to decide what the
Right.
other person thinks or what the other person is prepared to do. So I think, like, if you want to be understood, seek first to understand.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I just got like poured into, my mind blown, and I want y'all to feel this way too. So let's see what the people in the chat have to say. I didn't get to any of the questions, the written questions, but let's see what we got in here. Isn't this amazing? Y'all give it up for Miss Denise Hamilton. Indivisible, unstoppable, amazing. So let me see some of the questions that we've got in the chat. If we have any questions, and if you have any questions that have been flagged.
I'm gonna, rather than type, I'm gonna jump in because
Oh.
the spark that brought you two together in the first place, B and Denise, was a conversation we had at South by Southwest last year about loneliness. And we were talking about the crux of that conversation was about how loneliness keeps us from rising in our companies, right? How we are overwhelmed and underappreciated and isolated. And in the last year, as I've deepened my work around loneliness and togetherness, I've really come to realize that not only is it a workplace problem, but it's a problem everywhere, right? And I think that we are really facing a crisis of loneliness that is keeping us overwhelmed in our lives and isolated in our lives and siloed in our lives. But what I loved so much about the conversation that the two of you had was to talk about how do we bridge those divides? So with a book, Indivisible, Denise, I would love to hear your thoughts about loneliness and what can we do? What can we here in the room, marching orders, everyone here, one foot in front of the other, do?
Yeah, I think it's so critical because I think it is the problem.
Mm,
It's the lack of interconnectedness.
yeah.
Right? It is the problem of our time. So I don't really care what happens to you. I don't know my neighbors. There's a lady down the street from me who's an elderly woman that just had surgery. I don't even know that. Like, can I bring her a cup of soup? Or we're so disconnected from each other. We're so isolated. And it's weird. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I was promised that technology was going to free up all this time and I was going to be so productive. And instead, what technology has done, it has reset the clock. It has reset the expectation that you're supposed to now move as fast as a computer. And that's not, we're people, right?
Right.
So we're doing more, we're connected more, and we have the illusion of conversation on social, right? We have the illusion of conversation, but we don't have actual
Right.
conversations with people. So this division that we keep talking about is easy to foment because I don't know anybody that I don't know you. I can just look at you and
Sure.
size you up and decide who you are. I don't have to really talk to you. Or worse yet, I see one comment that you made and I can take it out of context and I can argue with you. There's no tone of voice. There's no, like, we have literally like surrendered the incredible gift of communication that we have. I had a game night at my house the other day for this reason. I invited my daughter and her friends, and I invited a bunch of my friends because that's the other thing that we're not doing. We don't have intergenerational conversations. So the blind are leading the blind, right? So my daughter's friends are asking each other what we should do, what their advice is. They don't know. They need to be asking me. I need to be asking my mother. But we're not talking intergenerationally. That's why groups like the list are so important, to create these like intentional interactions. It's not going to happen accidentally. And you have to be careful that you don't get your socialization fix from social media. It's not real. It's not real. And the more AI the more AI becomes central to our daily lives, the more we have substitute artificial humanity rather
Right.
than actual humanity,
Oh my,
the more intentional we have to be about talking to actual people.
yeah.
And I'll tell you, I know that COVID severed a number of networks, right? I
Mhm.
know a lot of people who used to see each other at events and do more networking or whatever, who haven't spoken to people in years, really,
Yeah.
because just COVID just like disrupted that pattern. Jump on your LinkedIn. Jump on
Hmm.
your LinkedIn this week and just reach out to just say, I'm going to reach out to 20 people. Hey, haven't talked to you in a while. How are you? I see you have a new job. What's going on with you? Would love to
Hmm.
jump on a Zoom and have a one-on-one conversation, right? Like schedule those intentional, understand that it's so important to be intentional about being connected and being in community. And being in community is hard work today. There are so many things to argue about. So
Hmm.
many things to argue about. But if we can start with respecting and caring about each other legitimately, I think then we can build relationships that will sustain us. My friendships, my relationships are literally getting me through the hectic, busy nature of
Absolutely.
this book launch, you know? And
Sure.
I can't imagine life without them. But
Yeah.
we have a crisis of loneliness in our culture, and consequently, sub bullet to the crisis of loneliness is a crisis of mentorship, of people that you can go to and say, I slept with John in accounting, and now he's being tacky and he's telling everyone at the company, like, what can I do?
Oof.
Do you have a person that you could go
Or
to in
HR.
life?
Yes.
Right? Do you have a person you could go to in your life and ask a really hard question,
Hmm.
a
Wow.
really personal question? That's my loneliness test, right? And if I don't, that's my homework. I need to be cultivating
Yeah.
actual depth in relationship. You can
Right.
come to
Yeah.
a million lunch and learns, right?
Right.
You can. And you can sit and you can be a spectator. But you want to go that extra step of connecting with people that you're seeing in these
Yes.
spaces and reaching out and asking, no, how are you doing? No, really. How are you doing? What's going on with you?
Right.
How are you
Period.
handling the blah, blah, blah? I saw on social media that you just had XYZ happen. How is that working? Right? Like having deeper, more connected conversations and with people who don't look like you and who don't sound like you and who you've decided how they feel.
Right.
I want to
Right.
challenge everyone to reach out. And it's vulnerable, right? Because what if they reject you? What if they do? Harriet Tubman got 3 at a time, 5 at a time. Can you do 20 in the next 2 months? That's I'm just going to reach out to people and connect. Not because you just want to save them, but because it also saves you. We're social creatures that are designed to work in community together. So let's really commit to that.
Denise Hamilton, you're blowing my mind. You're breaking curses, you're breaking barriers, you're breaking bonds to old stories. Congratulations and thank you for doing this because you are absolutely right about the depth of relationships. And quick shout out to the list. If you are on the list, we actually are having a lister happy hour this Friday to welcome our new community manager, Fatima. So that's an in-person event in New York. But we want to do these all around the country as well, wherever our listers and our sisters are and our siblings are. Now, as for you, where are you going to be next? Because I will be at every campaign, I mean, every book signing that you will be blessed and will bless us with. What's
We're going to Chicago. We're going to
next?
Atlanta. We're doing it in
Hey,
Houston. We're good. And if
okay.
you want to invite me for an event, please let me know. Let me know where you are, and I'll try to connect and plug you into the events that we're doing. Yes, it's wonderful to sell a bunch of books. That'd be great. But more than that, I want to change the conversation. I want to
Yeah.
change the conversation. I want to remind people who they are and where their power lies.
Oh,
And I need some of that mothers against drunk drivers energy, Where is that? That's what I'm looking for. Like, I think we can do so many incredible, powerful things. And I just want us to talk and move and speak with that energy. And so I'm just thrilled. I'm always, I don't think I'll say again a special thanks to Anne and to the list. I'm always still amazed that anybody wants to listen to what I have to say. I think that there is no greater gift than the gift of your attention. And I'm so grateful for the attention that you've given me today. And I want you to be so careful about who gets your attention, who gets your energy, who gets your passion, like where it sits. And let's make sure it doesn't just like drain on the bottom of the floor, like it's just wasted. I don't need anybody on this call to be in a Twitter fight with Elon Musk. I just don't need that. That is just not a good use of your time or your energy. I do
Oh,
need you though to use your influence, your relationships, your connection to lift up
yeah.
those that are around you and to create opportunity wherever you see the opportunity to do so. So thank you. Thank you, B.
Oh my God. Thank you for blessing me. Thank you. I want to say, as the great Wendy Williams once said, you are a legend, you are an icon, and you are the moment, period. And this is your moment. Thank you for using your gift, for honoring it, for empowering everybody. Come off mute and give it up for the legendary Denise Hamilton. Join the
Thank you.
movement. Woo!
Aw, thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank
We are so
you.
proud of you,
So
girl.
great.
Thank you so much. This was so powerful.
Oh, thank you. Thank
So
you so much,
amazing. Thank
everybody.
you, Denise. Thank you, B, for leading this conversation. I was taking notes. We will circulate a recording. Everyone needs to hear this, Denise. Everyone needs to buy the book. The link is in the chat. We all need to give you 5 stars on Amazon and tell all our friends on LinkedIn, because the way that you are going to make your voice heard, the way that you are going to change minds is by getting your book into hands and getting yourself into bigger rooms. This is the beginning of the Denise Hamilton movement. I
The
appreciate it
movement.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I appreciate you. Thank you. We'll be in touch again.